unless the Jets are even more dysfunctional than I thought, Devin, there's no way Woody Johnson sat through all of those interviews without asking every candidate. I mean, when we're getting ready to go to the Super Bowl next week, if you haven't heard, this is a fairly important game in New Orleans, but we'll have certain questions that we want to make sure we ask of every person who comes by the set for an interview. The number one question that you ask of every candidate for anyone who interviewed for head coach or GM with the Jets is, what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers? What would you do if we gave you this job? And you got to have an answer. And now, it may not be a truthful answer. It may be the answer that the candidate thinks the owner wants to hear. But there's no way that Woody Johnson is flying blind on what Darren Muji or Aaron Glenn think about Aaron Rodgers. And I think when you look at everything that was said yesterday, it points directly to they want to move on, but they're not going to take the bait to be the one that's blamed for it. So he can paint himself as a victim and then go somewhere else and try to have some triumphant final chapter to his career. I think they want him to be the one to make the move. They want him to be the one who says no thank you. They don't want to be the ones to say to him, we don't want you anymore.
Yeah, and it's the toughest decision, I think, for any new head coach and general manager coming in is because you have, and Darren Muji said it, like this all-time great guy. Like he's Aaron Rodgers, everything he's done in the league and all of that. But ultimately, like you're in there to run a team. And I am very interested because everything I got about Aaron Glenn tells me he's a truth teller and he's going to do what he thinks is right. Like, he seems like he's cut from the same cloth as a Dan Campbell. It seems like it was the perfect fit of them being together because they seem very similar in their approach and what they want to do. And I went to a Giants and Lions joint practice last year, and Aaron Glenn, like the jacket open, like the intensity like you see as he's kind of talking from the press conference, it was the same thing on the sideline. Like he was yelling and screaming every single play. Like he was yelling at somebody. So it's hard for me to imagine when it comes to Aaron Rodgers that like he won't be very straight and very upfront of like, hey, we need to know what you want to do at this time. Like this is what we're thinking. Like it just seems like it's going to be accountable. Like he's going to hold Aaron accountable to whatever his word is, whatever that they want to do. But I always think of the side that I don't know is I've never been in coaching. So I don't know exactly how that works, but I think it's very unique of you get an opportunity to be a head coach and the owner comes down or he calls down, whatever you want to say, and he says, what's going on? And now when this conversation now opens up of what's going on with Aaron, and there's some back and forth of you're going to have your conversation with Aaron Glenn, the head coach, and what he thinks is going on. But the unique thing about all of this is for most players, that's where it stops. When I had a conversation with Coach Belichick and then we talked, whatever our conversation went, the next conversation that Mr. Kraft heard only came from Bill Belichick. It was, I talked to Devin, blah, 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 blah. This is what it is. This is what it, and the next conversation I had with Kraft was directly off of the conversation him and Bill had. It wasn't a call on Devin. Well, what do you think about this? The difference is with these quarterbacks is Woody Johnson, after his conversation with Aaron Glenn, is going to call Aaron Rodgers. And it's going to be, well, what do you think of the conversation? How do you feel? And that, to me, is what makes those decisions so tough because you're going to have two people who, from when you build the team, it's supposed to be head coach, then player. But in these situations, it becomes head coach and player depending on what the owner does after those conversations and what his input is going forward and how that all works out.
Unless the owner's already decided he wants to move on and the organization is now strategizing a plan that will make Aaron the one who taps out, that they won't have to say to him, we don't want you. Now, he can still turn around and say they made it look like they didn't want me, but at a certain point he comes off as he's just whining over something that he's being unreasonable about. And, you know, there's a couple elements to this. One, Aaron Glenn told Jay Glazer, who relayed the information on the pregame show before the Commanders-Eagles NFC Championship. Glazer said that Glenn plans to go meet with Aaron Rodgers, and he wants a resolution much sooner than later. Reminds me of 2008, when the Packers knew if they went to Brett Favre early enough in the offseason and said, we need a yes or no right now, they knew it would be no. So if you press Aaron Rodgers before he's done whatever ayahuasca dark room vision quest thing that he needs to do to come to the conclusion that he wants to play football again, and if you tell him we need to know now, the answer is going to be no, because I don't know. So yes or no, I have to say no. And then he can whine to McAfee or whoever later that they forced my decision before I was ready to make it. But in companion with that, Devin, is the Bill Parcells influence on Aaron Glenn. No player's bigger than the team. It's all about the team. And I know at one point he was asked about Parcells yesterday, and Glenn said, I'm me. But you're you shaped by your influences. And he's already sounding like Parcells. I could see him going to Aaron Rodgers, is meeting with him one-on-one and saying, look, if you want to come back, here's how it's going to be. No friends and family on the team. We're not going to bring back Devontae Adams. We're not going to bring back Alan Lazard. We're not going to sign any of your former teammates to make you comfortable. We're not going to do that. Number two, you got no say whatsoever in personnel. You got an opinion, keep it to yourself. You're here to play football. And number three, no more of this Tuesday, 45-minute, talk about whatever you want to talk about, dig up conspiracy theories and whatever else. No. You got 2 media availabilities a week. You got your Wednesday press conference, you got your Sunday press conference. And if those terms are all acceptable to you, you're welcome to stay. I could see something like that where they're going to make him an offer that they know he won't accept. They're going to apply terms that they know he won't be good with, and then he'll be the one to decide, I'm walking away either to another team or I'm just going to call it a career.
Yeah, and I do think there's a side of that for the New York Jets that it might feel like we're rushing your decision, but at some point for them, like you have to create a plan. Like this is our first time, and we don't know how many years we're going to get opportunity to do this. So if you're not going to be here, are we going to be able to draft a guy? Do we need a free? Like they're going to need a plan to go forward, and I don't want to create 5 plans to know whether you're going to play or not. Like I don't want to have to create all of these different situations and spread ourselves thin, because again, we might only have 1 crack at this, 2 cracks at this. Like we want to get it right. But I do think when Aaron Glenn, from listening to him on podcasts, I listened to a little bit of his Pivot podcast. I do think he goes to Aaron in a conversation. I don't think it would be as much of a, we're doing this, we're doing that, you're in or you're out. I think that's where he's a little different than the Bill Parcells and that kind of old school mentality. I think he does believe in conversation. Now, I will say, again, those conversations will start off with ultimately like, hey, we'll have a conversation, but like I'm the head coach. Like I'm going to do what I want to do in these situations, but I do want to hear how you feel, what you think, and then I want you to also hear how I'm coming, what I think, what I believe in. So then ultimately, I think Aaron Glenn would even turn it to Rodgers and say, like, this is the angle and how I'm coming. Like, you would have to make a decision if you're good with that. Like, I respect everything you've done. You're not this young player who doesn't know. Like, you have a ton of experience, and I respect that you would have to make a decision based on what I'm telling you. But like what I'm telling you and how we're going to operate, that's not changing. Like, that is going to be the New York Jets. You got to be in with it or out with it. But I'm always here. We're always going to have an open door conversation. You can come talk to me about anything. Like, we can explore those things, but it's not going to be where I'm just sitting here and listening and saying, all right, what he says we're going to do. No, like, we're not doing that. I'm the head football coach, and I respect you as a player to listen, but you're not going to make any determining facts and things like that in this organization.
Bottom line, and we need to take a break, but as Aaron Rodgers has gotten deeper and deeper into his career, I feel like he expects and he believes he's entitled to a certain amount of deference. I didn't hear anything yesterday indicating that they're going to have deference, genuflection, ass-kissing, anything of Aaron Rodgers. He's just another guy on the team. And we're not going to roll out the red carpet. We're not going to bend over backwards. We're not going to do anything other than say, you're welcome to play on this team at your current salary, or you're not. And that's it. That's the only promise you're getting. You're no different than anyone else in the locker room. And if he wants that deference that he believes he's earned, he's not going to get it with the Jets. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.